Evening, everybody. It's a few minutes before 6, and this is your closing comment. It's video number 447. Okay, well, we had a bunch of information, and I'll set up the day for you. After the debate ended, the futures, which had been up and down, got very weak and were substantially lower until this morning when ADP came out with their numbers. Chicago PMI was a surprise. Pending home sales was a record to the upside. Q2 GDP was as expected, and mortgage apps were up. And so the market started up about 150 and went straight up most of the morning into the afternoon. The high was about up 550, and we sold off after the comments about there not being any real progress made between Speaker Pelosi and the Secretary of the Treasury. Anyway, we finished up 329 after going down to, I want to say that the low in the afternoon was still up, but maybe 100 or 150. So we rallied back up to 329, a 1.2% gain. The NASDAQ was up 82.26, or 0.75%. S&P was up 27.53, which is 0.83%. The Russell was pretty much unchanged, up $2.97. And the transports were down 71.79, or 0.63. The market internals were not great. 1.1 to 1 up on the New York, and 17 to 15 down on the NASDAQ. Volume was up, which is not really a surprise. Today was the last day of the quarter, so there was a fair amount of positioning and evening up. So we had two new companies. I want to say they're IPOs, but in point of fact, they weren't offering any stock. They were both direct listings. Palantir, a 17-year-old software securities firm, was given a price of 7.25 as a reference point. The stock actually opened at 10, traded up to 11.42, and then came back down and closed about 9.80. It's currently trading 9.80, and that they say, up $2 and change, but the fact of the matter was there was no offering price because there was nothing offered. Asana, ASAN, had a reference price of 21. It opened at 27, had a low of 26.75 and a high of 29.96, and it closed just above 29.5. The reason that I don't play earnings is well founded here. MU, Micron, beat, top line, beat, bottom line, doubled their high profit level. The stock had a little bit of a jump yesterday on the news, up as high as 54. But today, and actually even last night after their conference call, the stock was down. It finished the day today 46.92, down 380, 7.5%. As I said, I don't like to play earnings because they're a coin toss, and even if you get them right, sometimes it just doesn't matter. Becton Dickinson, 233, up 757, or 3.36% on the news that they have an antigen test for COVID-19. Disney laying off 28,000 employees. I know I've mentioned it before, but it also kind of spilled over into the airlines and the cruise lines, even though Boeing had the FAA actually flying their plane today, and it looks like they may be able to get the planes back in the air, the 737 Maxes, back into the air by the end of the year, which is somewhat interesting, especially since air traffic is so far down that they won't have a use for them, which brings up the other point that the airlines had to decide by today whether or not they were going to accept government loans under their terms or not. And they've all been whining about the fact that they're going to have to give layoffs. Well, that's the way it goes. When business is bad, you pare down your number of employees or what you're doing. You go to austerity. Nobody should be paying your way, especially not a group like the airlines, when we have others like part-time and full-time hourly workers at Disney getting laid off. You don't see the government offering them any money. We have a bunch of earnings tomorrow, a couple of big names: ConAgra, PepsiCo, Constellation Brands. So we'll see what those look like in the morning. I reported this morning that Duke Energy got an offer from NEE, and basically they said thanks, but no thanks. The stock closed 88.56, up $6.15, or about 7.5%. And New Era, NEE, who made the offer, closed down on the day about $5 or 2.16%. In the rest of the market, the Dow was 28 stocks up and 2 down, and the big winners were American Express, UNH, Amgen, and Goldman. Financials and Home Depot. Financials as a group were strong because the bonds were down, and it makes margins a little bit more available to the banks. And the two stocks that were down were Disney and Nike. On the futures side, the chart on the screen is the nat gas. And if you look at this and you see the setup, basically a pretty big drop. This is a daily chart, and this is $2.92 as a high, and today's low was $2.42. I mean, that's a gigantic move, but more importantly, it was just looked like it was going to touch the 50-day moving average, got down and rallied up. It closed slightly lower on the day, but still a pretty decent move. I didn't buy the UNG calls. I'd like to see what happens tomorrow. And the reason that I say I like this setup, it's because it's basically the same setup that we played last week in the silver. The silver got very oversold, bounced off a moving average in the morning or overnight, and then started up. It's a similar setup. This was the 100-day moving average. Basically, on the reversal day, the next day we had kind of a quiet day. That's what I'm actually looking for in the nat gas to get long, because I do expect it to move back up. By the way, in the silver, we sold the second half of our AGQ, the 3 times leveraged silver ETF. We sold those. We paid $1.30. We got $2.10 for them. We got $2.70 for the first ones, and we were as high as $3.20 today. But as soon as we started moving down, 3 times leverage tends to catch up to you pretty quickly. The gold was also down. Oil was up nicely, 40.22, up 93 cents. So that's a little bit of help to the the distillates. And we also had a really interesting move. We are short the bonds. We're basically in the TBT, which is bonds down and um, interest rates up. And I've pointed this out a half a dozen times. It was in Sunday's letter. If you look at it on a weekly, it becomes even more extreme. It feels to me like we are breaking to the downside. We were in this really nice consolidation. We fell out of it here, but came right back up into it. Now we've broken down and have spent 6 weeks trying to get back above, and it just hasn't happened. And so those options, which we were carrying at a loss, actually doubled today. The close here was, let me just make it a little clearer. The close here was below the line. That's the first time we've seen that. And we were way down here, down about 1 3/4. We finished down about 1, and a little bit lower than midway on the range. We could easily come back down to test these lows, certainly the ones right here at 174 and change. But this area around 176, 174, would make our options worth 80 or 90 cents. So that's what we're playing for there. And Bitcoin was down 45 on kind of a quiet day, and the dollar was actually up a little. Okay, everyone, hope you had as good a day as I did, and don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything, but it does support us. I'll be back first thing in the morning with your pre-open.